great job today. Tell you what, we're going to just do a quick little recap over what we talked about during our session, and we're going to talk about it through the eyes of exactly what we did. We talked about that in time, we have 3 different ideas. Our time signatures that we've talked about have been 4/4. We've had 2/4. We've had, we should do these in order. 4/4, 3/4, we've had 2/4. And then we haven't gotten to another one like 7/8 or duple meters, but this right here is essentially having 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So inside of each measure that you and I do, there will be exactly 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. But in between each one of those beats, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. It does that over and over and over again. In 3/4, we just get rid of that 4th beat, and we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. For me, I kind of see a triangle with 1, 2, 3 sides. When we were doing 4/4, I kind of saw a rectangle because it has 1, 2, 3, and 4 beats. When we go to 2/4, it isn't like 4/4, which most music is in. It isn't like 3/4, which is a waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 2/4 actually goes from 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2. So you know that a half note is worth 2 beats. So hypothetically in 2/4, you would only have 1 half note. So the idea is, when we write these measures out, if I were to put a clef on here, like, you know that this is a staff. You know that when we have 2 staffs, that they're just individual staffs unless we tie them together as being the grand staff. So when we do this, it makes this the higher clef, the treble, and this the lower clef, the bass clef. So we could call this the G clef, and we could call this lower clef the F clef. Now what we did today was we just talked about where middle C was. We know that we have C1, we have C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, and C8. Lots of C's. But our first C that we should get accustomed with is our middle C. When we go up, the notes go higher. C, D, E's on the line, F's on the space, and then G is the G clef, which is why the treble clef is on the G line right there. When we keep going with this, you'll notice that eventually we will come to another C. On this space, we have a C, meaning the D that comes right after this C is right above C there. So on and so forth, until we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. When we get all the way up here to C, you can see how this C is very high. When we keep going, those notes become exponentially higher, to the point where I can hear a 9th C if I really wanted my brain to hear it, but it's in my imagination. So just like we went up and we had C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, raising higher, that's going sharp. When we go sharp, the notes get higher in frequency. But when we go down below, we are going down in flats, meaning a little line, a stem with a half B or a half heart, makes these notes go down. So the notes below that are D. Right below a D, I'm sorry, not a D. Right below a C is a B. Right below a B is an A, and then we've got a G. When we go through this, we'll notice that these notes, when correlating with the bass line, show us exactly where we're supposed to be. So if I put this line there, and then I put an A on there, I would know that the B is right above it. So this B note is right here. Notice how the C goes to B, there's the space, and on the line I have an A. The space above is a G. The top line of the bass clef is going to be F, G, A, B. That C is right here. That C that I'm writing is the same C. So there's a switch between the bass clef to this note, which is there, and then it goes into the treble clef. So all these notes going back down the other way, E, D, C, B, A, G. G being the bottom line of the bass clef, and then A being the top line. On the treble clef, we would have E, and then it goes all the way up to the top line, which is F. So that's a lot of notation, a lot of notes, and I know that this has probably become pretty boring. But what you and I did was we did this same thing with tempo, but we did it without notes, meaning you and I just clapped values. So here's an example of what we did today. We drew out a big old staff. We gave it a couple different measures, an end measure, and some middle measures. First measure, second measure, third measure, fourth measure, end measure. And then we just put values. So if this was in 4/4, that first measure we could have a whole note. Now I wrote everything on the G line, but since we didn't put a treble clef here, it's not a treble clef nor a bass clef or an alto clef or a tenor clef. It just is a clef that shows duration. But as soon as I take that same line and I put a treble clef on there and that same note, that note now has a duration and a frequency. This is the treble clef, so this is obviously a G note, which is 5 notes away from your C. Middle C to be exact, which is right there. So C, D, E, F, G. This G note sounds like that. When we played out our rhythms and our measure, let's say that we had this whole note, and then we had a quarter note, a quarter note, a quarter note, and a quarter note. Notice how those quarter notes are still within the boundaries, 4 notes per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat, but they're not on the G line anymore. They're actually going from G to A to B to C. So what we would hear if we were counting this in rhythm, we would hear 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or whole note, quarter, 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 quarter. However, if we were singing it, we would have G, 2, 3, 4, G, A, B, C. So the notes that we play on the piano correlate with these notes. Even when we throw some stuff out there like a half note, oh, those should be open. And then let's say 1, 2, we'll do an eighth note on the G, G, and we'll do an eighth note on the B, B. And then because we have 4 notes per measure, that's 1, 2, we need 2 more notes. So let's do a half note on the D. What we just saw here with the double bar is whole note, quarter, 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 half note, eighth note, half note. Cool? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how I played on the 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Has to be 4 beats per measure. Half notes worth 2 beats. Eighth notes are worth 1 beat apiece when tied. And makes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So with the notes, we would have G, 2, 3, 4, G, A, B, C, B, B, G, G, B, B, D. And because this feels empty, I'm going to erase that end line, put another measure here, and then end it with a whole note triad. I'm going to put a C major, E, and a G. This C note, E note, and a G note, like we said, sounds like this. So the whole thing that we wrote out in this example for today, clap along, play along, or sing along, is G major, 1, 2, 3, 4, G, A, B, C, B, B, G, G, B, B, D, C, C, D, C, 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 and then whole note or half notes, which open is for G, B, and D. What I just wrote right here is a quarter note, quarter note, quarter note tied together as a triad, another triad, and then a half note of the open G. 1, 2. This whole thing has this melody. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that was informative. I really enjoyed doing these lessons with you, and next week we're going to sing and play the piano. It's good seeing you. We'll see you then. Aloha.